Okay, so hello everyone. Uh, can just anyone just confirm I'm audible?
Yes, Bhaiya.
Okay,
Yes, yes.
so hello, I'm Pianshu Jain, third year right from Triple E branch, and I will be interning at Microsoft in the next summer. Okay, so before we move on, like how to get an internship, where we can get an internship, first let's see what's an internship and why to do it. Okay, so over your year, you have nearly 8 months going through your 2 semesters. Okay, so in those 8 months, what you do is just attend the classes, practicals, labs, quizzes, and all such things. Okay, so what you actually lack is your practical knowledge, like how to do work on real life projects under the supervision of someone, be it a professor from other institute or in a company. Okay, so in internship, the first and foremost thing is you learn new skills and you have the experience, you gain the experience to work on projects using those skills. And that projects are not like your random club projects. Those are which will be actually roll out in productions. Okay, then there will be your chance to explore different career opportunities. Like after choosing your career, there won't be any major changes. But in the internship, you can explore various fields like design, SD, and like we'll talk about various fields in the next slide. Okay. And then if you are aiming for higher studies, PhD, masters, either from foreign or even from India, research intern will help you a lot. Like you can take my word for that. And yeah, like there's money related, you'll get money, you'll get paid for it. So yeah, hashtag Anda Pesa, hashtag summer short and all such things. Okay, so let's next slide. Okay, so these are your various options that this internship has to offer for you. So like from the profiles, you can choose SD. It will be related to developing softwares, app development, web development, operating systems, databases, all such things. Then we have data science, where you'll deal with huge chunks of data and like use like extract meaningful things out of it. Then there's consulting, where you will be helping companies in analyzing the trends, how to grow their market, and all such stuff. Then there's core, which you are studying throughout the semester, like be it mechanical core, electrical core, and then there's open source. And in the internship, we have two sectors. The first one is industrial intern. This is where you work under companies. And these companies can range from newly founded startups to big tech giants like FANG and other such stuff. And then this happens basically in the winter, the summer, and then your second and third year. From the fourth year, you have the placements. Then we have research intern, and you have the options like you can go to NITs, IITs, DRDO, ISRO. These are all in India. And you also have various foreign research institutes where you can intern under professors. And this is all what we'll talk about in today's this talk. Next slide. Okay, so first let's see how you can apply for an internship. This isn't basically for any role. This is generally for internship. Like that's the generic info. Next slide. Okay. First of all, your CPI should be at least greater than 7.5. And this is like one of the mandatory conditions because companies have the rule that your CPI should be greater than 7.57. It depends from companies to companies, but 7.5 is the safest and greater than 8 is well and good. So this is one of the most important things that you can work right from now. Your CPI should be greater than 7.5 at least. Then there are some companies that put restrictions on the basis of branches, like they generally favor circuital branches. But yeah, that's no big issue. Like you can, there are various other stuffs that you can work on. And yeah, some company eligibilities include students with minor as well. And these minors basically are like computer science, maths, and triple E, and sometimes product design. But these are the minors that are favored by companies. Okay, next slide. Okay, so whenever you will be applying for an internship, the only thing that the like the shortlister or the company or the professor to whoever you are sending, he will first check out your resume or CV. What's a resume? It's actually like you can say a PDF that contains all the information about you, your education, what all things you have done in your college, before the college, the projects you have took part in, your extracurriculars like hostel work or something else, and your position of responsibilities, the courses you have taken, your CPI. So it's basically everything that will help them to know who are you, what do you do, and are you suitable for them. So how to make your resume stand out? Like, what are the key things that you can put in your resume, or like how you can make it better than the others? So first thing will be next slide. Okay. So first thing is the projects. It's one of the important sections of your resume. So what are actually projects? So these are basically things that you do under various clubs. You can do it on your own with your friends. Like it's totally up to you. Like there are various clubs, like technical clubs generally, coding club, SWC, electronics club, robotics, CNA, FEC. They all distribute various projects, hackathons, and they hold various competitions where you have to submit your projects. So these are one of the major projects that our students generally put in our CVs. And if you are looking for core projects in electrical, you can go through this site, fbgaforstudent.com. And there are various YouTube channels that have code alongs, like they will code and you can just code along them. They will explain each and line, every line. So these are two of the most famous channels, like Clever Programmer and Web Dev Simplified. So like these are code along projects. And then there are hackathons organized by various like companies, organizations where you have to submit your projects as your submission. And they can be in team like 2, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. And like you can take the example of Flipkart, Grade, Uber, Hashtag and all. Then there are various students who do projects under professors. And these professors are generally of our institute. They can be of your department. They can be of other departments. But like it's up to your interest. And then if you want to learn the skill, like one thing that you have to make sure that don't just copy any project. You have to learn, like you have to understand what you are doing. And for this, the best place you can find out to learn the skill is basically W3 Schools. Like it's a website and it has various tech stacks you can learn from. You can just go through it, understand the syntax, what that statement does, and just implement it in your code. And then you also have Coursera. So it basically has courses, or you can take other courses also. But yeah, it's one of the most famous websites. So with these courses, at the end, they ask for projects as a submission, or they just code along with you as they reach the final end of their project. So yeah, this also you can look up through, and make sure you don't just pay for Coursera. Like it's one of the common things that we do. Like we just apply for financial aid and it basically takes 10 to 15 days and they'll just give you the course for free. And the most important thing that you should take away from this slide is your project should be such that you can talk about it at least 5 to 10 minutes to the interviewer. Like they'll sure ask you about the projects you have done. What was the reason that you did the project? Who all did the project? What's the tech stack or everything that you used in the project? And they can also ask various simple things like how you implemented it, what's the core concept behind it. So make sure you understand this well. Don't try to complete your project overnight. Take time and understand it. Okay. And from here on, Shreya Goyal will teach you.
Hi everyone, I am Shreya Goyal. I am a third year EC student and I will be interning with Microsoft next year. So continuing with the discussion which Pianshu started about resumes, another section which is important on your resume is the achievement section. So I'll be discussing few things which you can put on your resume in the achievement section. So obviously, everyone puts their JE ranks or the Olympiad ranks if they have any, so including KVY, NTSC, RMO, and others. One thing which you can start doing from now on is giving coding contests. Some of them which like have a good impression on your resume include Google Kickstart, CodeJam, Facebook Hackercup, etc. You can start trying out these. Google Kickstart takes place almost every month, so do give it a try. And people do mention their CodeChef and CodeForces rating if they have a decent rating. Another thing which like we want to highlight so that you can start improving the achievement section of your resume is the hackathons and scholarships which take place. So I'll be discussing in detail about these two things in a while. And for ML/AI profiles, people give hackathons on Kaggle as well, so you can check that out. Going to the next section of the resume, the PORs and extracurriculars section. One or two PORs are like good enough to put on the resume. You don't have to like take up a lot of things. One thing we want to like mention that the PORs which you had in first year do not actually count in the POR section of the resume. You are supposed to mention it in the extracurricular section. So here basically we are trying to say that you should take up some good PORs in the second year so that you'll be able to mention that on your resume. About the extracurricular sections, you can add the cultural club participations which you have, any competitions. You can also add about the workshops which you have attended and like the certified workshops. You can add those as well in the extracurricular section. So yeah, let's talk about the hackathons. Basically, hackathons help you improve your achievement section. So first of all, you can give the club competitions. There are a lot of competitions by Coding Club, CNA, SWC, Electronics Club and all. You can try participating in all those. And if you get a good rank in that, you can put that in the achievement section. There are two other websites. One is Dare to Compete and another is Hacker Earth, which you can try out for giving such hackathons. And on these platforms, actually companies like big companies like Uber, Flipkart, American Express, conduct hackathons, and you can try to get a good rank in there and put that in your resume. So that is one thing. And there are few hackathons which take place which are company specific and which actually CCD mails to you about them, and those help you in getting a direct interview opportunity. So to name a few, there were opportunities like Microsoft Engage, Amazon Wow, Uber C++ this time. And these helped us in having a direct interview opportunities with the companies. So that's one thing. And about the scholarship programs, there are a few like Google Women Techmaker, Tava Research Capital. And obviously there is this Institute Merit Scholarship for the people who are the branch toppers of the year. So these are few things which you can look out to fill your achievement section. As we are ending the discussion about the resume, few things I would like to highlight is, first of all, we had this intense discussion about the resume because companies do resume shortlisting in the intern season. So having a good resume will give you an edge in the intern season. Another thing which we want to you guys should keep in mind is that most of the opportunities are shared by mail to you, and like just one mail is sent, there's no reminder or anything sent. So you should check your mails properly, make it a habit to check all your mails. And you can also form WhatsApp groups where you can, remind each other about like fill this opportunity, this is the deadline or something like that. There are some hackathons which involve team participation as well. So like you can go ahead and form choose 2-3 of your friends who you can connect with and give the team hackathons. Yeah, that's it. And one suggestion is like you all should start, like you should make a LinkedIn profile if you haven't yet, and also keep a basic resume ready with you so that whenever an opportunity comes, you are able to like participate in it. And yeah, do participate in all opportunities. Like it is for sure that each opportunity will teach you something or other. Yeah, so with that, I'll end the discussion about resume. We'll start with the profiles now. Over to you, Divya.
Hello everyone, I am Divya Darshini, a pre-final year of Electronics and Communication branch. I will be interning at Barclays in the coming summer. So this is one of the most important profile that is software development engineering profile. Next slide. Shreya, next slide. Data structures and algorithms is the most important thing that is required for the preparation of this profile. These are some of the basic data structures and algorithms that are being mentioned here. It is just for your reference and the list is not exhaustive. There are many more that you can get through the online resources. Next slide. Coding is very, very important for profiles like software development, quant, as well as analyst profiles also. Generally, C++ is considered to be the preferred language for coding. All the beginners who have not who are new to coding, they can start with the HackerRank platform where they can go through through all the basic C++ modules, and they can build their problem solving skills from this platform, and they can also solve problems topic wise on basic data structures. Then afterwards, they can switch on to HackerEarth platform for basic algorithms. After you have done with the basics of your data structures and algorithms, then you can just switch on to giving contests on platforms like Codeforces, CodeChef, or AdCoder for building your competitive programming skills. Data structures and algorithms, they are very, very important for your internship preparation because they are asked widely in your coding test. Your whole coding test is based on data structures and algorithms only. And your to ace the interview also you require it, because in that you are basically, you have to write code that the interviewer is asked, that interviewer asks, and you have to, and they also check your problem solving skills and logical development ability, which is only possible through data structures and algorithms only. So while giving contests, it is very important that you focus more on logic development rather than your rating. So if you have done with your, if your foundation of data structures and algorithm is good enough, then you can switch on to competitive programming and giving contests that are either weekly or bi-weekly, or there are some monthly contests also on CodeChef and Codeforces platform. Then for medium level algorithms, you can solve this CSES problem set also. And then you can, these are some of the sites that like CP algorithms for advanced algorithms that you can also go through. And GFG, you might be knowing that this is one of the encyclopedia. It contains all the resources for DSA as well as SD preparation from beginner to the expert level. And this is one of the major questions that arise in the mind of every student, is that whether we should take an online course or not. For CS MNC branches, DSA is already a part of their curriculum, but for other branches who are aiming for SD profile, they can take paid courses from Coding Ninjas, Coding Blocks, or Pep Coding, which will actually help them excel in their internship preparation. Next slide. These are some of the resources for DSA. These are this book you can just refer for topics. And if you have done with your basic, if you have a good foundation of your DSA, then you can also read this book for detailed discussion on algorithms. And for your C++ basics, you can go through these YouTube channels. And for specific topics like basically which are involved in competitive programming like DP, etc., you can go through these specific channels. And when your internship season arises, then students start solving questions topic wise from lead code and interview bit. So you can go through these important platforms. They are very important for your interview preparation. Now, Kautilya will tell you more about the internship preparation for SD role.
Hello, I am Kautilya Pandey, a third-year student of EEE department. I will be interning at Oracle next summer. So now we will discuss about CS fundamentals. So CS fundamentals is one of the most important topics for your interview. Like most companies will expect you in their tech rounds to have a basic idea about OOPS and DBMS and also about OS and networking. Some resources for OOPS are shared here like GFG and tutorial point. So you need to go through like the basic definitions of the OOPS principles and as well as few questions of MCQ on these topics. Apart from that, we have DBMS, and resources for that are Study Tonight and Gate Smasher. Gate Smashers is actually a YouTube channel where concepts are dealt with in depth. And for these topics, I would recommend you to practice in your free time, because these topics are not that important for your coding rounds, mostly for MCQs and for your tech interviews. OOPS and DBMS are the most important topics. I would actually personally recommend you to go through these in your winter vacations. OS and networking are asked in your MCQs and tech interviews, but they are still of minor importance. So if you have time next summer, when you are done with your DSA and other practices, I would recommend you to go through some MCQs based on these two, networking and OS. Next slide, please. Some company-specific topics like some coding rounds, apart in the coding rounds, apart from MCQs on DBMS and OOPS, they also ask you problems on puzzles and aptitudes. Some companies which are known for these are mentioned here, like GS, Adobe, Cisco, Oracle, Amazon. If actually Oracle in its initial rounds ask you only MCQs on CS fundamentals, English comprehension, and aptitude. There are actually no coding questions in that. Some websites are mentioned here, like Brainsteller and the probabilitycourse.com. The 50 Problems in Probability is a highly recommended book, especially for your interview preparations, because companies at times ask puzzles directly from it. Apart from these, there are system design and object-oriented designs, which slot one companies ask in their interviews. Give you a problem statement, like we have an example here of airplane reservation website. Like they'll give you a problem statement and expect you to come up with a solution on how will you design the website and how will you distribute its resources, etc. Some YouTube channels which deal with this are mentioned here. The Gaurav Sen channel is a famous one. Networking is a common topic in some companies in slot 2, like Amazon and Cisco. Apart from them, this year Salesforce did ask them, and Oracle is a DBMS company, so you can expect questions on that. Apart from these topics, some MCQ are also based on the data structures that you study, like trees and stacks and queues. So make sure that you practice some MCQ on those topics as well. Some language-specific questions are asked as well. If you can go through the C/C++ MCQ questions on GFG, you'll get a basic ideas of what to know about the languages and how they expect. How do you expect to react them to some specific inputs and outputs? So I'd recommend you to go through the MCQs on GFG, as well as another website known as sandfoundry.com, which I think is not mentioned here. I will give you in the chat. Okay, so we have had a long discussion on HD. So if you have any question, you can ask it in the chat, and we will be continuing with the presentation.
Hello, I'm audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So, hey everyone, I hope you had some insights until now. I'm Adit. I'm a senior here at IIT Guwahati, EC. I interned at in my second year at University of California, Berkeley, in Goldman Sachs in my third year. And now I'm placed at the Boston Consulting Group as as an associate. Yeah, so that's about my profile, but I'd like to talk about today specifically data science, which is something I explored in the second and the third year, and I think which is very relevant for even if you're going in any other field. Could you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. Okay, so before I go ahead and tell you what exactly, what could you prepare and how can you apply to a data science intern, I'd like to talk about what exactly data science encompasses. And a lot of people have a misconception. Also, this has become sort of a fad term. A lot of people are into data science, AI, ML. Almost every third person in college you meet will be doing something in this field. But yes, particularly talking about data science, I think there's a lot more to that than just the strictly data analysts or things like that. I think firstly, there's a lot of data collection and cleaning that you have to do as a data scientist. Data collection from various sources, and then streamlining that data into a proper data set which you can operate upon. Then about the algorithms that you use, you have to think about them. You can't really use any algorithm for any particular problem, given the constraints on memory and other things. You have to do some reading regarding this. And also there's finally, so the interesting part that a lot of people find really lucrative, which is the problem solving or the data analysis. And finally, I think with any given data science problem, you are expected to, present your work in a proper fashion, which is understandable by a broader team. So I think these are the four broad steps. Particularly, I was interning at, as I said, University of California, Berkeley. And although my professor was an economist, he had a lot of data, and I'll talk about the specific problem I worked upon. But yeah, data science is not something that, okay, you'll have to work under a professor who is into statistics or into particularly data science. But this is an interdisciplinary field, and you can actually expect it to work in, I mean, very tangential fields like economics, psychology, neuroscience, medical, other medical imaging, etc. Cybersecurity too. So yeah, I think it's a broad area, and that is in some sense what data science is. Definitely, AI and ML, I would say, is a subset of what data science constitutes. There are other applications to it as well. AI ML is one, analytics is another. Then, as I said, visualization is another field, and I think you can get a taste of all of them uh, in any given problem that you are working on. Okay, so next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. So before we go ahead and see how exactly do we apply in the opportunities or what kind of different opportunities are present, I think there are some prerequisites that you need to have in order to be applying to these positions or to different professors or to different industrial companies that are present. And definitely some background, some theoretical background is required, especially in probability and some basic statistics that are there. I mean, it's mostly a revision of what you have done in 12th, plus some additional concepts like expectations and different hypothesis testing, etc. But yeah, and definitely if you want to go into machine learning, then it's a broad field. So you can go into the different kinds of unsupervised and supervised machine learning. But the point is, the first step is to take some courses on it. Either you can take on the courses that are available online, or even our department offers it, but it offers it a little late. I mean, in your third and fourth year. And since we are talking about second year interns, I think the best way to is go ahead and do the MOOCs. Getting a certification is great, as I think someone earlier covered. But you can also do it without certification. And if you really have the knowledge and the work to display it, certification does not really play a big role then. So that comes to the second point, which is hands-on experience. So you should be really, I mean, these are some libraries that are listed of Python specifically, but there are libraries in other languages such as R or Julia. Corresponding libraries are there as well. And the point is, you need to be very hands-on with these libraries. So you need to know how exactly you should do a particular thing. So let's say if I have a data of, a cell phone data of people, of how their movement is there in the, let's say in a given day. So how exactly do I use that to figure out where their home is? Now I can Google some algorithms, some clustering algorithms and see that, but applying those algorithms will require the hands-on knowledge of these specific libraries. And you can get the specific know-how by doing some projects or by doing some basic assignments which are available in these courses that are there, or even on GitHub. There are a lot of notebooks that are available which will help you do each one of these libraries, or many more libraries as well. I mean, these are some of the basic libraries that I mentioned, but there are tons more. And I think getting a hands-on experience, okay, given a problem, given a solution, how will you implement that solution? That kind of thing is what hands-on experience encompasses. And so once you have the theoretical knowledge via courses, the hands-on experience, I think it's the most crucial part is to do and go ahead and do some projects, some real-life projects that are there. You can either do this under some club, let's say the Consulting and Analytics Club, some professor from IIT Guwahati. There are a lot of professors in the CS department, mathematics department, and electrical department, which have a ton of projects on different kinds of data. You can just approach them and say, okay, sir, I'd like to work on you. Just see what their research papers are, and just work under them. You'll get the data, you'll get the exposure. Also, other departments have these. I mean, so there are interdisciplinary problems that I said. So you can also go and work with a BSB prof. Yeah, but again, that is one route. So the professors, the CNA club or any competition on Kaggle or the likes. And finally, also you can just take data sets from, I think the presentation disappeared. Hello?
A minute, Bhaiya.
Okay. I'm audible, by the way, right? I
Yes,
think I
yes.
went into a hobbit mode. Okay.
Yeah, you are clearly audible.
So yeah, and
Yeah, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So as I was saying that, I mean, finally, if not I mean, definitely do a project under professors or clubs or, competitions, but also you can do some self-paced projects using actual real life data. So you can build perhaps, take the stock data available via some APIs, let's say Yahoo Finance or some other API, and create a stock and first do some technical analysis using these tools, and also then try to predict the stock price, the average stock price for the next week. I have also mentioned some mock data. I mean, this link that I have given is, you can find a lot of data sites. So these are sites which have different data sets available. You can just download any one of the data set and try working on it. Just take any problem, start working on it. The point is to get accustomed with the process and not exactly the problem that you're solving. And in the end, if you have something to show, you can make it perhaps a Jupyter notebook and host it online, or a website, anything. But you can show your work to others, to perhaps your future employers, or to your, other research-based colleagues, etc. So you can show that, okay, you know how to work and this is what you have worked on. So I think these are the ways or the pre-requirements that are there. And I think this is a process of, this should go along later on as well. But I think this should be the first priority. And I think a time frame that I would attach is around 2 to 3 months, the next 2 to 3 months. Okay, so next, once you have some hands-on experience, some self-paced projects, or let's say projects with your professors and clubs, I think the next step is, could you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. The next step is, and specifically I will in detail talk about the research intern in data science, because I did a research intern and not an industrial intern, but I will also offer some pointers and I can take up some questions about the industrial interns itself. The discussion up till now was for both research and industrial intern in data science. And also, from personal perspective, I think this much hands-on experience is necessary for anyone in our branch, because there are a lot of electives in AI, ML, data science in the third and fourth year, which you can really benefit from if you have this particular knowledge. This is an interesting field, so it's a good skill to have in any field that you plan to go on. Okay, so for the research intern, I think there are 3 steps. The first one is to shortlist the professors that you want to work under. Now, a lot of people, what they do, and this is the mistake that I did, that I collected a list of professors in the, EE department itself, who are working in this signal processing, or let's say statistics or data science fields like these. But that is clearly a problem. I mailed to around 300 of these professors, and I think 3 or 4 gave a positive response here. Clearly, that's a very low success rate, but I would just like to say that it's okay. You can, even though it's a low success rate, you will get an intern. But the problem is that these EE professors usually don't reply. They usually see this as a spam kind of mail, whatever we mail them. And a better approach, where our need is very much, and especially, the kind we are sort of cheap labor to them. So what I would say is to go ahead and search professors in interdisciplinary fields. So as I said, I worked under a professor who was an economist at the Haas School of Business in University of California, Berkeley. You can perhaps work with a person who is at the Harvard Medical School and is working on cancer detection using images, or perhaps brain tumor detection using, again, imaging. Or maybe you can work under someone from the Kellogg School of Business and work to understand, okay, how exactly do the rains influence business, and have a really big data set of weather and business performances in different regions. So you can use these. And also, okay, I'm getting a lot of LinkedIn requests. I think you guys are sending me as I'm speaking. But okay, anyways, going back to the topic. Yeah, as I was saying, you should definitely look at interdisciplinary fields, and not just focus on, let's say, EE profs or CS profs or math profs. But because these profs, interdisciplinary field profs, are really in dire need of people who have technical knowledge, because they have a lot of PhDs and research assistants who are theoretically into the place. So let's, for example, for medical imaging, you have people who are experts in the medical field, but they don't have research assistants who can actually do the groundwork and work on these images using these tools that I mentioned earlier. And that is the work that I think we all like to do as data scientists. So that I think definitely interdisciplinary research is a good field here. But you can also go ahead and look at the different AI/ML profs and people of the likes. I think the IITG.ai club is very active in this particular field, and you can, talk to them. They have also some contacts with the professors from Australia and some other universities around. So you can actively participate in these clubs and then see if you can, go ahead and contact these profs. Now, so once you have shortlisted the professors, which is basically looking at the different fields, looking at the regions and colleges you want to work at, shortlisting the departments, and finally the profs of that particular department. Once you're done shortlisting the professor, which is compiling a list of them, their mail IDs, their interests, their papers, etc., you can actually start creating, start mailing out to them. So you can use either a mail merge software, or you can write out individual mails about how you would like to work under them as a research opportunity. I'll actually, what I'll do is in the presentation itself, I'll add the mail that I used to send, but use that as just a guide and not a template. Don't do it copy it exactly, cut and copy it. But yeah, you can mention, so it's like a CV, a mail, but it's in a written format. You have to tell, okay, why exactly are you interested in their work? What do you have to offer? What can you commit? And yes, these are the things basically that you have to broadly cover. Specifics you can talk about later on. I can definitely share the mail and this PPT itself. But yes, so I think write them a general mail and just tell them if it's okay that if they don't have a post. Most of them will not have a post or something like that. But interdisciplinary profs I have found are very receptive if you sell them correctly. So if you sell them, okay, I am a technical expert in so and so things, I have done this and this, I would like to work under you. And I see that your research is very exciting. I love it. I love this particular aspect of your research. I read your paper and was amazed by it, etc. And you get to work with them. So I think COVID might be over, so they even might invite you. My internship was remote. I was supposed to be in Berkeley, but my internship went remote. Anyway, so I think they can invite you over to their place, wherever you want to go. And don't think of it as, okay, you have to work in the top 10 colleges only. No, it's nothing like that. Work with a good professor. That makes a lot of difference. Have something to learn. And it's great if you can have some research output, let's say a paper or some tangible output that you can later on show that, okay, you worked here and you created this particular thing. And the problems are really exciting. As I said, I worked on a particular problem where we were given cell phone data and the data was around 1 terabyte. And we had to understand that, okay, which are the businesses that are closing and which are not. And due to COVID, basically, because in USA, there was no particular central policy. And we had to analyze the different reasons why that was taking place. So there are really interesting problems. And yeah, I think that was about the research intern thing. I would definitely take any questions that I have. Finally, I'd just like to wrap up by saying that the industrial intern is also the same, but except the medium that you reach out to them. So you can definitely mail the HR reps. But what I would say is go ahead and explore your personal contacts, perhaps from your parents or your friends, whatever, and ask them if they have openings there. Also, you should definitely go ahead and look at LinkedIn, especially our alumni, where all they are working, and just ask them if they have an opening for an intern. Because most of them would have, not in perhaps very big companies, but small startups or even medium-sized businesses have these kinds of positions. So you can definitely go ahead and approach them. There's no harm in approaching people. But yeah, so the medium is different there. You would have to approach via LinkedIn in this particular case for the industrial interns. And mailing, yeah, you can also mail them, the HR reps, your CV and your cover letter. But yes, that was about it. I think that is it. I think if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Okay, I think, yeah, this is, where do we find these professors? Yeah, I think one of the main ways of finding these professors is to go ahead in the university department. There's a faculty page. Every university has this faculty page. Even our every department, sorry, has this faculty page, and they have a list of all the professors that are there. Usually, you can find the mail IDs from the link of the personal link that the professor has, or from the university site itself. That is, I think, how you can find the mails. But yes, I think that is about it. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask them. I'll try to answer it. Otherwise, I think I have taken a lot of time. So sorry for that. Yeah.
Thank you for the insights, Bhaiya. We'll start with the consulting section. Utkarsh Bhaiya, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Utkarsh Gupta. I'm currently a final year student, CST branch. So a little bit about me. I've done my internships at EY, PwC, and Marico in the third year, and I'll be joining Boston Consulting Group next year as an associate. So next slide. Okay, so before we start, I would like to give just a bit intro about consulting, like what exactly is consulting. So consulting is that there would be a client who would have a typical problem. It could be a business problem or a general problem, and he would be approaching you to solve that problem. So there are again different types of consulting. So the problem could be even related to certain health issues. So there are health consultants as well. There are education consultants as well. So there are people who are involved in government advisory as well. But the main sought consulting is typically the management consulting, in which there would be corporate clients who would be facing some business issues and they would be approaching you in that case. So the next thing is what is the work, basically what exactly do consultants do and what are the typical type of projects which are assigned. So you can consider that there is a particular company, okay, say Microsoft, for example, okay, and they would like to say enter the Bangladesh as, into the education segment. Okay, so if this is their problem, so there are again multiple ways in which they can enter the Bangladesh market. They have to check about whether it is feasible or not, whether they should acquire a particular company in Bangladesh and then enter with, whether they should merge with a particular company. So there are many details which are required, whether the venture of entering into the Bangladesh market, whether that would be profitable or not. So there are so many things that they need to see and they do not have the expertise. So for that, they contact the consulting firms who would provide them an over expertise that, okay, whether it would be good or not. So this is the kind of work the consultants should be doing. Okay. Now coming to the career advantages. Okay, so consulting provides accelerated professional growth. Okay, so you would be involved in working with different kinds of clients who would be in different industries. So it could be education, healthcare, logistics. Okay, even like food tech. So there would be multiple industries. You would be firstly researching those industries, analyzing, okay, what all the problems are there, what all solutions can be given to those problems. So it's so learning is great in consulting. So that is first thing. Second is obviously the pay. So pay is very high, and eventually as you grow within the firm, the pay would increase at an exponential rate. Third thing I mentioned about, okay, the diverse range of projects, even like you could be assigned, say, a finance project, you could be assigned an HR project. So the project diversity also within the industry, that is also there. Last thing is like the fancy lifestyle, the travel, stay. Okay, and in the end, I would like to conclude that there are multiple amazing exit opportunities also there in consulting. So once you are into the consulting firm, after say 5 to 6 years or maybe 10 years, if you decide to leave, so you can, because of your enormous experience of working in diverse industries, you can enter into any particular industry, be it software, be it banking, or any other type of industry that you would like to enter. Next slide, please. Okay, so we'll just begin by how to apply to consulting firms. So first is obviously the on-campus recruitment. So for all the non-tech roles, for internships particularly, companies are very few companies would visit the campus. So on campus is slightly tough, I'll say. Not a lot of companies would be coming. So moving on, the second is cold mailing. So cold mailing, for that, either you connect on LinkedIn and acquire their email IDs of the people who are there, okay, or through the mails of HRs or someone. So you have a list of emails. Okay, for now you have to draft a very personalized mail. Okay, if there is a general mail that you have drafted and only using mail merge, changing the name of the firm or type of role, all such things, then it would end up in the spam box. Okay, so like try to draft a very personalized mail for them, specific to the role, about you. How would you basically contribute towards the firm? So a personalized mail is required. And you can probably apply to various. In the next slides, I'll be discussing, okay, which all companies you can apply to for consulting. Okay, but you can send these mail to them. Typically, the openings are year round. Okay, it's not as such that you would be have to do the internship only during the summer months. It can be during the winter also. Last year, since it was an online classes, so I did an internship during the months of August, September as well. So the flexibility is there. It's up to you when you want to pursue an internship, which is off campus. Now, the third one is very important, LinkedIn. Okay, so before like approaching people on LinkedIn, you have to first develop your profile. Okay, the profile needs to be updated regularly. All your personal information, your professional, your projects, the achievements, everything needs to be updated. You also need to have a good bio and a summary ready on LinkedIn. Okay, and also try to like post regular, not I'll say regularly, but like say in a week or a month, your LinkedIn presence needs to be there. Okay, so any informative article, okay, or some people have if there is a good post which is there, you can probably share your views by commenting on that particular post. So your LinkedIn presence, that needs to be there. Okay, after that, build your professional LinkedIn network. So right now, I think most of you would have connected with your college friends only, probably some alums, but also try to connect with people of your target firms. So if there are few certain firms that you're targeting, it can be also for like SD people also. Like if you're there in SD and you're I say looking for off-campus roles, so they try to connect with people in Google, Microsoft, or their target firms who are at say mid-level managerial positions, have 4 to 5 experience there in the firm. Okay, try to connect with them, try to develop a conversation. Okay, once they're really comfortable with you, you can probably ask them whether there's an internship opportunity within their team, and they would be happy to refer your resume to the HR. So that is one of the best routes, and the conversion rate also is very effective, but it takes time. Okay, you'll have to make your LinkedIn presence. You have to develop those networks on LinkedIn. Okay, the fourth one is obviously applying on the career section on the company webpage. Okay, you have to regularly check for the summer and winter programs that are there, and you can apply there. Okay, last is the various job portals. I think you might be aware of them. One is Naukri.com. Even on Dare to Compete, nowadays they're having internship opportunities. So there are various job portals which are there. Okay, apart from that, try to utilize, as Adit also mentioned earlier, try to utilize your personal network to the fullest. Okay, so there might be some cousins or some relatives who would be there in their respective companies. Okay, try to approach them and ask whether an internship is there in that particular firm. They would be more than happy to refer you. Okay, so like don't hesitate that much. Try to approach the relatives and friends as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, so like as I mentioned, I'll be talking about the companies here. So typically, I've only mentioned a small list, which is like the tier one companies. So tier one would technically include the MBBs, which is McKinsey, BCG, and Bain. Apart from that, there are also niche consulting firms which focus on a particular domain. So like Kearney particularly focuses on operations kind of projects, the industrial projects and sort of things. Again, there would be Oliver Wyman, there would be Accenture Strategy. Deloitte is particularly focused on IT consulting part. EY is there, PwC, KPMG, Dalberg, LEK. So these are again the type of firms that you can approach to. Apart from that, there are many Indian consulting firms as well. So one is Redseer, the other is okay. So Redseer is the one which is coming to my mind. I'll share more firms which are there. Okay, Zenov is another firm, Indian consulting firm, which is good. It is based out in Bangalore only. So there are a few Indian consulting firms also that you can apply to. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the process is broadly in two stages. The first would be your resume submission, and the second would be your case interview. So it's broadly divided into two steps. Now, consulting resume is a little different from the resume that you make for other roles, that is SD and data science. So I'll talk a little bit about consulting resume. Okay, it broadly has four sections in it. First is education. The second is experience. Third is PORs. And the last one is extracurriculars. Okay, I'll just firstly mention what are the key points that you need to keep into mind. Okay, so it needs to be a one-pager resume strictly. Okay, do not try to make it a two-pager, no matter how many points you have. The one-pager resume, it depicts that you can showcase your best self concisely in a very effective manner. So one-page resume is always advisable. Okay, even for roles such as SD and data science, try to keep your resume one page only, because the recruiters do not have time to go through two pages. Okay, it needs to be a one page that shows okay that you can make the available information in a concise format. Okay, now in consulting resume, typically the firms look for two peaks or more. Okay, so what is a peak? Okay, so it peak is basically an extraordinary performance in one of the four sections that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so two peaks or more, that is usually advisable. Okay, now the last is how to write the points. So if you are writing, say, about even a project or like a particular experience, okay, so try to use the STAR framework when you are writing that particular point. So STAR is basically there would be a situation. Okay, what would be the task which was assigned to you? Okay, what all that you did and what was the result of that? Okay, so this is basically a STAR. Okay, I'll share the link about how you can effectively write about the STAR resume also. Okay, and some other resources I'll share. Okay, how to make the resume more effective. Okay, lastly, avoid grammatical and spelling errors. I think this you should know, but also like try to review it multiple times because there might be even errors in the spaces, full stops, or whatever. Okay, so like there should be no grammatical or spelling errors at all. Okay, now coming to the peaks, I'll mention it section by section. So first is for education. The peak would be for education, it would be high GPA. Even during the school times, high percentages or high GPA. So this is one of the peaks that you can have. Your research internships, if you have published some research papers, either in conferences or in reputed journals. So that is another peak that you can get. The third is scholarships. Okay, even like the IMS scholarship that you're receiving in the institute, or like peaks could be like if you have changed your branch. Okay, so that is also considered like a peak because based on academic performance, you got the opportunity to change your branch. Okay, even there are like the Aditya Birla scholarship is there. Okay, OP General scholarship is there. So there are many scholarships that you can apply to. Okay, and those are again considered very reputable and would hence give you a peak. Coming to the experience part, so I don't think right now you would be having a lot of like you wouldn't be having any experience as such. Okay, so instead of the experience section, you can begin by writing projects. So during my second year also when I was applying, so that time I didn't have a lot of experience in my resume. So I mentioned some good quality business projects which were there. Okay, so try to do these projects under a club or some professor. Those would add value to that particular project. Okay, and yeah, so business projects would be so there are many projects, Consulting Analytics Club, even the FEC, Finance Economics Club, they would be sharing a lot of projects over in the year. You can do some projects under them and those would be pretty good enough. Okay, apart from that, in consulting firms, they value brand image a lot. So the commonly known names, the tech giants, okay, the banks, and other major FMCG companies, ITC, uh, 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 these sort of companies. So like if you have a good brand name on your resume, you are more likely to get selected than others. The last thing could be co-founded startups. So startup experience again has a tremendous value because it shows okay how much devotion that you can give to a particular project or idea that you have. Okay, and you consider all the factors within it because when you are managing a startup, you will be looking at the finances aspect, the feasibility of that, and the operations of that particular project. Everything you'll be managing. So co-founded startup, that is also a good thing. The PORs, I think you might already be knowing what are the most sought after PORs. So if like you have a good POR, that would again be valuable. All the Gymkhana PORs, managing the fest and club secretaries. So these are some valuable PORs that you can have in the CV. Lastly, coming to extracurriculars. So extracurriculars, basically some really reputable achievements in either sports or cultural. Okay, it could be even inter-IIT sports meet or cultural meet, even like the tech meet if you have won a particular position. So that would again count as a P. You can also write your experience in social work or something that you have done for the community. These things are also valued when if you're writing in your extracurriculars. So this was about like the consulting resume. Okay, if you have any questions, like please write in the chat box. Okay, I'll move to the next part of the process then, which is the case interviews. Okay, so the next is the case interview process. Okay, the case interview process, it would be a little different for all the firms, but broadly, uh, it would include two parts. The first would be the case questions or the business problem. It could be either a case question or a business problem that you would be given. The second would be the fit questions that would be asked. So the case question, it could be particularly like a guesstimate. So guesstimates is like you would be given a random problem, like estimate the number of say jeans which are sold in a particular year. Okay, so right now it would seem like okay, how can one calculate this particular thing? But it's a very step-by-step process, and once you have practiced a few guesstimates, you would be easily able to guess what approximately how much of the particular quantity is particularly there. Okay, the next would be like a profitability case, like a market entry case. So these are some standard cases which are there. I have mentioned some resources in the next slide. Okay, you can read about okay how to solve these particular cases. And then again, there would be discussion on some general business situation or like a marketing strategy. Okay, and so your general awareness about the business happenings of the world, that should be quite sound because they might be willing to discuss upon those. The next part is again the fit questions, which would include your typical HR questions. Consulting firms don't have a separate HR round in general, but they would be testing your it within that particular uh, case interview process only. Okay, so like your intro, why consulting, why this particular consulting firm, what are your future goals? So like these are the typical HR questions that they would be asking. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so now some resources of how to go about. Okay, so on the left side, we have some resources which are very specific to the consulting process. And on the right side, some general guide. Okay, so I'll cover the consulting resources first. So on the first step, you can go through some YouTube channels to get, okay, how the case interview process actually proceeds. So YouTube channel by Case Interview Cracked is there. Okay, Victor Ching has some really good videos about the case interview process. There's a playlist by Aditya Agarwal also. Okay, so you can go through these three playlists in the beginning. Once you have gained some familiarity with the overall process, what exactly is there, you can start with these three textbook sort of, I'll say, for consulting. Okay, so first is Case Interview Cracked. the second is Day 1.0, and the third is Case in Point. Okay, so these are some really good books. You will learn about the frameworks which are there, how to approach different kind of problems, what all questions you need to ask, and everything. Okay, so after that, once you have mastered how to solve the general cases, you can further move on to consulting books or guides by various institutes. Even IIT Guwahati has a consulting guide which was published by Consulting Analytics Club. Okay, there are books by IIMs, even like foreign based schools like Harvard, Wharton. Everyone has a case book. You can go to them and see what all kind of problems are there. And this needs to be a two-way process. You need to have an interviewer, which could be your friend or your senior, and he would be driving the case which you would be solving. Okay, so basically two people need to sit together and then solve it. One would be the interviewer and the other would be the interviewee who would be solving the case. Now, coming to the general read, your business knowledge needs to be quite sound. Okay, this is I'll say a requisite only. It cannot be simply based on the case practice that you go in the interview, because if your business knowledge is not sound, you won't get the ideas or you won't be aware of what all kinds of problems could be there, which are actually needed in solving that particular case. Okay, so try reading some business news, Bloomberg or any other Economic Times, HBR. So like a lot of business news are there, Financial Times. On Google News only, you can just bookmark these news sites or newspapers and you can read this information. Okay, FinShots is again a really good thing to go about for reading general business news. There is Read On, Mad Over Marketing. Okay, they have their Instagram pages as well. You can just take 5 to 10 minutes every day and go about the major news which is there, and you will be up to date about in this aspect. Okay, I have added a drive link also containing various resources. You can all go through that. Okay, so this was in general about the consulting process. What are the different firms which are coming? What are the different resources you have and everything? Okay, if you have any questions, please drop into the text box. Okay, yeah, I think so. That would be it. Okay, request to the Sepsim stream. So I cannot view the chat box. If there are any questions, can you just mention them?
Okay, we will check that. We'll try to give you the chat access.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you. We'll continue with the core profile now. So do we have Pawan and Bala with us?
Yes, Shreya, I'm present.
Yeah, you can start.
Move to the slide 29, please. Yes. Hi guys, this is Pawan Kumar. I'm an upcoming intern at TI. So I will be discussing about the preparation required for the digital part in core. Basically, the most important is the basic concepts. You have to be very strong at it. They will ask you the main part. They will ask you is about how your concepts are strong. They will give you trick questions and all. Okay. So for this, the main logics for digital logic, you have to read the book Morris Mano. From chapters 1 to 7, it is enough, and you have to understand chapters thoroughly where the sequential logic is present, which is chapter number 5. Okay, you have to understand what all are the basic concepts in the sequential logics. And the next important part is timing analysis. This is one topic which is not discussed in any of our courses, but is one of the major part of questions in our written test as well as interview. Okay, I have included an website, vlsiexpert.com, where you can completely learn about timing analysis, what all parts will be there. Okay, it's very important to go through this if you're preparing for core. Okay, and then going on, CMOS. Okay, for CMOS, you'll get to learn in the 4th semester. It is an additional topic. It depends upon the interviewer actually. If he wants to ask, then he will directly ask. But sometimes he can give you an option, like whether he will ask you whether you know it or not. So if you don't know it, then you can directly say don't know it, because they will not ask from that. But I suggest you to prepare from it. I have included a book named Digital Integrated Circuits by Revek. Chapters 5, 6 are enough. And in these chapters also, there are physics explained. Okay, so don't worry much about the physics of the parts, but learn about the concepts, like what will be the end things and a small important concepts which are marked. Okay, so that is enough. And the main thing for digital is you should at least have one good Verilog project. Okay, that means you have to be thorough with a Verilog thing. So for for Verilog language, it is briefly described in this Morris Manor book in between the chapters. But I suggest you to go through this book, Fundamentals of Digital Logic with Verilog by Vrenesic. Like it gives you an detailed introduction as well as examples in provided. So it and for at least you have to have a good project, right? You have tons of project available on internet, or else you can contact anyone from electronics club, because I didn't see anyone from our courses or friends who have already have experience from Verilog. So I suggest you to contact anyone who knows it from Verilog, from electronics club. And the main courses that you have to prepare, I mean listen carefully, is digital circuits, which is going on now for you. It's very important for this digital part. Okay, so this is what they basically ask. And then you have to be thorough at basic concepts. So that's it for digital part. And for company wise, I think you will get to know it afterwards. For now, we can focus on concepts. Now, my friend Bala will take over for the analog part. Bala? And one more thing, if you have any doubts, please post on the chat so that I can see. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Balaratna Swami, third year right? I'm an upcoming intern at Texas. Now I will explain what you need to learn about analog profile. For analog, you don't need to learn anything new, unlike other profiles. You only need to be very strong at basics, and academics is more than enough. Unlike digital, you don't need to write any projects also, because they don't care much about analog projects. In analog, for my interview, they only asked about my knowledge only. They didn't saw even my projects at all, because you can't do a good analog project with your current knowledge. So they don't care much about projects. But for basics, you need to be very thorough at basics, and you need to be very thorough in every topic related to analog. So I will tell you about some main topics that you need to learn. First of all, analog circuits. It is very important topic you need to learn. This will be for this course. You need to learn semiconductor devices. In that course, they will tell you about MOSFET concepts. After learning MOSFET, you can learn analog circuits easily. These two are very important concepts for analog. And as I said before, basics are very important. So E101, basic electronic circuits. This course is also very important. You need to learn everything. That means you need to remember every concept in that. They mainly focus on basics, because even if you don't know higher things, they don't care much about. But if you make mistakes in basics, they don't consider you. After that, there are two more. There is another important topic that is related to communication systems and signal systems. For me, they didn't ask any questions about control systems and signals and systems in interview, but they ask questions in exam. In analog, they mainly focus on RC and RL circuits, second order circuits. So you need to be more focused on that circuits, how they behave at extreme conditions like one time, and some extreme conditions. So RCL circuits are very important. And there is a new topic which you are going to learn, that is poles. You need to learn about, you need to thorough that also, poles and zeros of the RCL circuit. This is more than enough. They don't care much about projects, because they didn't even see that. There is a CMOS for analog circuits. They write it as a requirement, but they didn't ask anything for related to that CMOS for analog. If you want, you can revise it. It may be beneficial, but they didn't ask me anything in interview or in exam related for relating CMOS in analog. Yeah, and there is a new domain which I didn't include here is digital signal processing, which Pawan got selected for it. The thing is, achieving it is very difficult, so that's why we didn't include here, because digital signal processing, the main concepts, it will be started in 3rd year, but while applying for intern, you didn't know those topics, so it will be very difficult for you to achieve that intern. If you're interested in that the intern, then you need to learn outside the academics. Yeah, this is all about analog. And CPI, yeah, CPI is like, they only care about cutoff. If your CPI is more than cutoff, then CPI doesn't matter. If your CPI is more than cutoff and you score very well marks in exam and then you perform well in interview, then they don't care about your CPI. CPI cutoff is around 7.5 and 8. It depends on company. For analog, there is only one company which is coming to our college, that is Texas. For digital domain, there will be multiple, but for analog, there is only one company, Texas. So do anyone have any doubts? Yeah, if you don't have any doubts, and we can continue.
Yeah, thank you, Vala. We'll go with the open source part now. Swapnil, are you there?
Hello, is my
Yes,
voice
you're
is
audible.
coming? Hi everyone, I am Swapnil Sahil from Chemical Science and Technology Department. In this 2 minutes, I will be talking about open source, basically about uh, Google Summer of Code. So open source is a source code that is made freely available for possibly modification and redistribution. So इसके लिए Git and GitHub आना काफी जरूरी है. So if you want to learn the Git and GitHub, you should check the tutorial on the YouTube. Don't pay for courses on the Coursera and Udemy. And some of these open source programs are famous: Google Summer of Code, GullScript Summer of Code, Major League Hacking, etc. You will search and find more than 10 to 15 programs are available on the Google. Next slide, please. So Google Summer Code is just a program by Google in which students join the community and code obviously to the project. Several organizations take part in this program with several projects. You just need to figure out which project excites you. And यहाँ पे नीचे एक link दिया हुआ है, you can access that to visit the official website. Next slide, please. So these are the steps to follow. You should now follow. Remember the dates काफी important होते हैं, so timeline का ध्यान रखना होता है, and they keeps on changing the dates and the durations, so stick to the official website. मार्च में ऑर्गेनाइजेशन लिस्ट निकलता है, तो तुम लोग इससे एज्योर हो जाओगे कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन सेलेक्ट हुआ है या नहीं, और अगर सेलेक्ट हो गया है तो तुम प्रपोजल बनाना स्टार्ट कर सकते हो. अप्रैल में स्टूडेंट्स अपना प्रपोजल सबमिट करते हैं और मॉडिफिकेशन करते हैं जैसा मेंटर सजेस्ट करते हैं, और मई के अराउंड प्रोजेक्ट अनाउंस हो जाता है. एंड बट ये सब प्रोसेस चलते रहेगा और तुमको काफ़ी एक्टिव रहना पड़ेगा कम्युनिटी में, अदरवाइज यू विल बी नेग्लेक्टेड. लाइक तुम आइडिया शेयर कर सकते हो, इंसाइट्स ले सकते हो, इश्यूज रेस कर सकते हो, PR डाल सकते हो. सो now coming to contribution part, like जितना ज़्यादा कंट्रीब्यूशन रहेगा उतना अच्छा, उतने चांसेस है तुम्हारे सिलेक्शन के. और मेक श्योर यू कीप पॉइंट ऑन क्वालिटी इंस्टेड ऑफ द क्वांटिटी. सो ये नहीं कि 10 PR डाल दिए और रीड मी अपडेट करने में बस. सो they will definitely not like spamming in organizations. So coming to the proposal के बारे में देखते हैं. And ये सारे जितने पॉइंट्स हैं वो काफ़ी इंपॉर्टेंट होते हैं, होने चाहिए, सारे प्रपोजल्स में होने चाहिए. अगर किसी में अगर छूट जाते हैं तो लेस चांस तो काफ़ी कम हो जाते हैं. सो और these are some basics points you they should be. So प्रोजेक्ट ओवरव्यू में होता है कि प्रोजेक्ट में तुम प्रोजेक्ट के बारे में लिखोगे और क्या ऑब्जर्व किए प्रोजेक्ट से, या फिर अपने बारे में भी लिख सकते हो अबाउट मी करके कि तुमको क्यों सेलेक्ट किया जाए और तुमको क्या क्यों लगता है कि बाकी स्टूडेंट से तुम बेटर कर सकते हो. और एक तरह से अपना बैकग्राउंड देना होता है कि तुम्हें क्या आता है, ताकि मोटिवेशन मिले मेंटर्स को तुम्हारे प्रपोजल पढ़ने में. रिसर्च और आइडियाज़ में तुम अपने इन्वेस्टिगेशंस लिख सकते हो कि तुम्हारे प्रोजेक्ट में क्या आइडियाज़ इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हो. और ये सब मॉडिफाई भी करोगे जब तुम कोडिंग राउंड में जाओगे ना उस टाइम पे. और मेंटर से सजेशन मिलते रहता है कि तुम्हें कैसे कैसे अपने प्रोजेक्ट को इम्प्रूव करना है. और ऐसा नहीं कि जो इम्प्लीमेंट करोगे वही लिखना है, बट उसी के आसपास रिलेटेड ही लिखना होता है. नाउ कमिंग टू डिलीवरेबल्स. डिलीवरेबल्स में तुम क्या क्या करोगे कोडिंग पीरियड में वो लिखना होता है, ताकि प्रॉपर आइडिया लग सके मेंटर्स को कि तुम प्रोजेक्ट को किस लेवल पे ले जा रहे हो. टाइमलाइन तो काफ़ी इंपॉर्टेंट होता है, एज थोड़ा देर पहले मैंने बोला. इसमें तुमको वीकली जो वर्क करोगे उसके बारे में लिखना होता है. बेटर यही होता है कि उसी वीक में वो काम करके पुश कर दे, ताकि रेगुलरली तुम्हारा वर्क और मेंटर्स एंड एडमिन्स तुम्हारे वर्क को जज कर सके और रिव्यू दे सके. और इसमें 2 फेजेस होते हैं. फेजेस भी चेंज होते रहते हैं, कभी 3 होते हैं, कभी 2 होते हैं. तो वो सारे फेजेस कंप्लीट करने होते हैं, तभी तुम्हारे जिसको सर्टिफिकेट मिलता है एंड में. सो और क्वेश्चन जो होते हैं कुछ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अपने ये फॉर्मेट में पूछे जाते हैं. तो बेसिक डिटेल्स देना होता है और लोकेशन, बैकग्राउंड, यही सब देना होता है. और ये और तुम्हें वही चीज़ लिखना होता है जो तुम कर सकते हो. अगर तुम ज़्यादा लिख दोगे कि तुम एक नया सॉफ्टवेयर ही बना दोगे ये 8 से या 9 हफ्ते वीक में, तो they are very smart to reject your proposals. So be realistic in your timeline. Next slide. So these are some of the good proposals from IITG from this year. Amey Vardhe Bhaiya is our senior from Computer Science Engineering Department, and you will be accessible to these links when you will get the slides. And Divyam is also from Computer Science Engineering. His main technology was C++. Only he knows C++, and also he is a good programmer. So his proposal was really awesome. And the second proposal was it was basically based on the mobile forensic. So also I have written one blog in detail, so you can read those blogs, and this will be very helpful for you to understand all the stuffs and the timelines and in details. So if you have any question, you can ask right now, or you can also DM me on or any of the other Amey Bhaiya or Divyam Singhal. So yeah.
Thank you, Sapnil. So we'll open for questions now. You guys can enter all your doubts in the chat, and the speakers can answer the questions.
You may unmute yourself and ask doubts also.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Priya.
I just saw a question from Subnitya Harinarayan about startups. If an applicant has a startup of their own. Just a quick point that actually having a startup on the side can be put up in your either experience or your project section. And if you have really achieved something, let's say got some clients or sold your product or people have used your product, you can actually sell that in your resume. And that could potentially be a talking point in your interviews or to people. In general, I am talking about even for your third year internships. Yeah.
Yes, Samuel, actually, we don't have a lot of idea about internships in mechanical core. It would be better if you can contact your senior from the mechanical branch. Thank you.